Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's I, the Reluctant Kringo, back again with another video. And if you're like myself, you're enjoying the new X-Men 97 animated series from Marvel Animation. However, a lot of you may not be aware of the secondary villain introduced in episode 3 this past week, the Goblin Queen. Knowing that we probably have not seen the last of Madeline Pryor this season, let's take a look back at the convoluted history of this X-Men antagonist, starting with her first appearance in Uncanny X-Men number 168. Following the Dark Phoenix saga, Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, goes to visit his grandparents in Alaska, where they own a charter business for cargo planes. Accompanied by his brother Alex and his father, he meets one of their employees, a pilot named Madeline Pryor. She is the spitting image of Jean Grey, and Scott is immediately in shock and infatuation with this woman. After a brief courtship, Cyclops proposes to Madeline, who is under the impression that Scott is retiring from active X-Men duty. Scott's inability to move on from the X-Men, his obsessive need to be there for his former team, will become a major conflict between him and his new wife later on. But before any of that can happen, Scott does go to work with Madeline as a cargo pilot. Here is where we'll see the first inkling that Madeline may have abilities that are latent and begin to see doubts about who she really is in the mind of Scott and the other X-Men on the team. While on a routine flight, their plane is sabotaged and crash lands in the mountains of Alaska. Unbeknownst to any of them, Loki is involved, as he grants magical powers to people on the plane, including Madeline, who is given the power to heal and takes on the name Anodyne. Now, this episode is brief and doesn't last very long, because those who sit above in the shadows, entities like Odin, demand that Loki restore them back to their natural order. It is also during this time that Madeline reveals she's pregnant. Following this, Madeline joins Scott supporting the X-Men because Magneto is now in charge and Scott cannot sit back and just let that happen. Magneto is eventually put on trial and removed as the leader. During this time, away on missions, Madeline would stay back at the mansion alone, never receiving a phone call from her husband about her well-being, but receiving calls from all the other X-Men who seem to care more about her than her own husband, and this causes a greater rift in their marriage. While Scott was on one of these missions, Madeline went into labor, giving birth to Nathan Christopher Charles Summers, the future Cable, on the floor of the mansion's kitchen alone. Still, Scott didn't bother to call and check on his wife. Cyclops was too busy wondering who would lead the X-Men, he or Storm. They decided to settle this dispute in the danger room with a duel between a powerless Storm and a fully powered Cyclops. Storm beat Cyclops, and Cyclops left the mansion and went back to Alaska with Madeline and their baby. Now, while in Alaska, Scott was doing everything he could to stay busy except to be a father to Nathan or work on his marriage with Madeline. One day, he receives a phone call from Angel and needed to leave his family for a meeting in New York City, even though Madeline threatened him that if he chooses to go, then he shouldn't bother coming back. He decided to leave. At this meeting with Angel, the resurrected Jean Grey is presented to Cyclops, and it is clear Jean still has remnants of her emotional turmoil within her from being the Phoenix. But Scott is both happy and torn to pieces at the revelation that his true love is still alive. Scott makes a decision to abandon his wife and child to form the new X Factor with Jean. Now, it's here that I must explain some missing pieces. Madeline is obviously a clone of Jean Grey. This clone was created by Mr. Sinister. He believed that a child with the DNA of Jean Grey and Cyclops would be a powerful weapon to control. Therefore, everything that's happened with Madeline, he has been influencing and orchestrating. But this clone was initially not viable nor capable of life, considered a failure by Sinister, and remained in her stasis tube until the death of the Phoenix. When Jean Grey sacrificed herself on the moon, a small spark of the Phoenix found its way to Madeline and brought this formerly failed clone to life, with similar memories and personality traits as the actual Jean Grey. However, now that the real Jean Grey is back, he must eliminate this clone and take the child before the X-Men figure out what the hell is going on. He sends the Marauders to capture the baby and kill Madeline. They fail to eliminate her, but they are able to kidnap baby Nathan. Madeline was shot several times and left for dead during this episode. She was brought to a hospital in San Francisco as Jane Doe, with no identity, and remained in a coma for a long time, until one day she awoke after having dreams of surviving a plane crash and the Phoenix. When Madeline came to, she was slightly changed. She had, due to her loss of her child and abandonment of her husband, become a much darker soul. She began to hate the X-Men, especially Jean Grey, and as her powers began to emerge, she attracted the attention of the demon, Nastor. This demon made a pact with Madeline to get her baby back only if she helped to bridge the world between the living and limbo, a place ruled by the demonic. Madeline agreed, seeing her chance to have her revenge and reunite with baby Nathan. Part of this plan was to corrupt Alex Summers, Havoc, Scott's younger brother. Madeline seduces him in her new darker form, the entity that would be called the Goblin Queen. In this new form, she visits the gravesite of Jean Grey, where Jean's parents come to visit, unaware that the original Jean Grey is alive. The Goblin Queen, in an act of twisted malice, turns the Greys into demon pets that follow her around like rabid wolverines. But there's another snag in the plan. Mr. Sinister has been pulling strings from the shadows, and Nastor ends up bringing Madeline directly to Mr. Sinister, and he binds her as he explains everything. The memories from her childhood, the memory of being the only survivor of a fiery plane crash, her love affair and marriage, her pregnancy, everything that she is and will be was his doing, and he essentially is her father. This enraged the Goblin Queen, who broke out and fought Mr. Sinister. In this episode, she's able to retrieve her baby and realizes every time she uses her powers, she becomes stronger and stronger with it. Taking demonic possession of the Empire State Building and murdering innocent citizens, she uses the building as a platform to bring the two worlds together so demons can now rule over humanity. But the X-Men, led by Jean, Storm, and Cyclops, attempt to stop her, because her plan also involves sacrificing baby Nathan, which will also make her more powerful and bring pain and agony to Scott. At this time, the Goblin Queen is aware of her origin and believes herself to be unnatural. Therefore, in her mind, it is only natural to do terrible things. She is defined by her rejection and abandonment, and then also reveals that Cyclops did not lose his duel with Storm in the danger room that day. It was her manipulating it telepathically so that Cyclops would lose and she would get what she wants, her family back home in Alaska. It is Jean Grey that telepathically links up with the Goblin Queen, and the two of them embark on a mental journey where, in the end, as the two battle, the Goblin Queen attempts a psionic blast that will kill all of the X-Men and X-Factor members as well as herself. But the teams are able to protect each other from the blast, which ends up only killing the Goblin Queen herself. And as she lay dying, Jean was drawn into Madeline's mind as her thoughts faded away one by one. At this moment, the spark of the Phoenix Force that gave life to Madeline returns to Jean, restoring her abilities to their full potential. Eventually, the Goblin Queen would return because no one ever stays dead in the Marvel Universe forever. But as far as the Goblin Queen's origin, that's how it all began, with a story arc stretching from 1983 to 1987. So what do you think? Do you believe the new X-Men 97 animated series did the Goblin Queen justice? Let me know in the comment section below. And with that, I'm still your reluctant gringo from south of the border. Salud and Huevo.